Hey, it's Phil. Hi. Um, so I'm live now. Yay. All right. So so this is let's see. So this is Godkiller, part 3. Yeah. Oh boy. Sorry. I'm still setting a couple things up. But yeah, I finished writing Godkiller. So you guys are gonna get to see the ending of it today. And I wrote down some thoughts about Godkiller. Um, yeah, so we can take a look at those also. Um, let's see. Hey, Bobby, how are you? All right. So let me go over some of these thoughts I had about Godkiller. Yeah. Um, and in fact, one of the things that I didn't really think about while I was writing Godkiller was how much does Crace know? And that was that was a mistake on my part. Um, so as I mentioned here, the mistake doesn't hurt that much in parts 1 and 2 because Crace has these short-term goals. He wants to get the gun, and then he wants to get the bullets, and then what? Okay, I get that he wants to kill, or feels he has to kill the god. That's you know, um, but then the question of how much knowledge does he have going into that um, like really scary and weird situation, that becomes a lot more important. It's one thing to tussle with a gun dealer, or even to tussle with an alien being like Herman. Crace is no stranger to violence. But what happens when your creator slash your father slash yourself? Oh, wait a second. Is Crace a Jesus figure? I didn't mean that. But still, what happens when this being wants to die and wants you to be the hand that kills it? How much you know going in matters as to how the whole thing plays out. Yeah, yeah. So that's something I'm going to have to consider strongly in in the revision of this story. Okay. Um, and I'm pretty sure that Crace is going to know more. Um, yeah, he's got to know more. All right. Yeah. So when I revise that, he will. Um, and another reason this is important, is that stories have a structure, you know, and it's more satisfying if the internal mystery, that is what drives Crace, who or what he is. These are questions he has, you know, but it's more satisfying when if I line that up with this external quest of getting the gun and killing the god. Yeah. Yeah. So it's important to line those things up, you know, and you see this done in movies a lot. You know, like John McClane, has to stop the terrorists, slash thieves. And why does he have to do that? Sure, because he's a good guy and all that stuff, but also in a way he's trying to win back his wife. and accomplishing. It's a strange narrative logic, but you see it work all the time. Stopping the terrorists means he gets back together with his wife, and it works. Hello, McGlenn. Wait, MC Glenn. I never figured that one out. Glenn. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, anyways, those are the things I was thinking of as I started writing part 3. But okay, I already wrote part 3, but I threw a lot of what I wrote out. This is a revision, so I'm revising. Okay. So let's see. So when we last left Crace, he had left the wreck of Stray Thoughts, the shop that was owned by Herman. He took the tarot deck from which he was able to get the bullets, because magic, and now he realizes he's got to get to Clearwater. That is, he's got to go west. His god is somewhere west, and he decides to go to the western coast of Florida. That's where he's being drawn to. Okay, so Crace made it to the Clearwater beach as the sun was setting. The breeze carried the scent. Phil. The beach carried the scent of salt, sweat, lotion, and the vendors and performers were packing up. Crace walked past them, past the gift shop, paid his $1, went through the gate, and walked to the end of the pier. Hey, you can do that at Pier 66, by the way. Yeah. He took out a hand-drawn map of the stars, the ocean, himself, and the god. He had bought some construction paper and crayons at an Eckerd's drugstore on the way to Clearwater. I don't think Eckerd's exists anymore, but I thought, why not? In my alternate universe, Eckerd's exists, right? In the Eckerd's parking lot, he had looked at the gun, held it, gazed at its eddies and whirls, at the black stars and its unnatural angles, and he had to remember the ocean, the blind depths from where he came, the crush of the thick, gelid waters, the bioluminescent giants, relics from another age, kept alive by what Crace had refused to remember, the great god, the great beast, the thing at the bottom of the depths. Okay, I'm going to write a lot of sentences like that, where I just pile shit on. And there's a reason for those kinds of sentences. Lovecraft tried to achieve that kind of effect, that kind of like mind-blowing effect with big fat words, and don't get me wrong, I like the word bioluminescent as much as anyone else, right? It's a pretty cool word. And then I like words you got to look up. Homework assignment: Google gelid. It's a great word. You don't have to Google it. What I like about gelid is that it means icy, but it sounds like gel. And I'm like, that's a great combo. But anyways, when things start to get weird, for me, the thing I like to do as a writer, so I like to pile stuff on. I don't want to give you as a reader a chance to take a breath. I want you to take in like this impressionistic view of what's going on, and so that's why I do it. Oh, Bobby. Or maybe it was bought by CVS or something. Who knows? But I'm keeping Eckerd's. So anyways, so he's got this map. All this he had drawn, a mix of an expressionist painting and an old map that showed dragons and the end of the world. Yeah. And um, now, Journey had requested a strange map, so I put it in here. But I wouldn't have done it if it didn't work. I was trying to think of a way of a way to get Grace, you know, to his god that didn't involve him stealing a boat like in an episode of Magnum PI. Nothing against Magnum, but you know, this is not a Magnum story. Um, you know, or any kind of, action adventure show. Who else would steal a boat? You know, maybe maybe the guys from Burn Notice would do that. Like no, we're not stealing a boat. We're not renting a boat. None of that. That seemed a little too ordinary to me. So I thought, why not the map? Now, here's something that doesn't work in this draft. Crace is too ignorant in this draft. So when he creates the boat, when he creates the map, it might strain your suspension of disbelief. You're like, how the hell did he do that? Did he get lucky again? And that's why I'm going to have to give Crace more knowledge, in the next draft, so that way, maybe when he finds the tarot deck, again, it's not just an accident. If Crace knows more, then instead of all this being improbable coincidences, even for a guy like him, it becomes more logical, and or more believable. And I want things to be believable. I want you to save your suspension of disbelief for alien space gods and not waste it on, could Crace really do that? An audience's suspension of disbelief is a precious thing that should not be wasted. Yeah. So, by the way, Star Wars has a couple of great examples of suspension of disbelief and of wasting it. Like the look of the Millennium Falcon on the inside, and just the general lived-in look of the original trilogy helps a lot with the suspension of disbelief. It looks real. It has verisimilitude is the word. But then we get to parts where Luke almost hooks up with his sister, and then we have to use our suspension of disbelief for that. Like, why didn't Obi-Wan Kenobi say something? It becomes either creepy or just something we have to stop and think about. And it's not a cool thing, like a monster that's in a trash compactor. It's like a strange thing. So again, as a writer, I want your suspension of disbelief to follow the cool stuff, to be used on the cool stuff. And actually, when things are cool, when things are fun, when things make sense, suspension of disbelief is easy. But anyways, we have the map. Okay. And by the way, a little bit of foreshadowing, possibly at least a little bit of a threat. This old map that showed dragons and the end of the world, that comparison that I made, when you think of those old time maps, they show you, here, here there be dragons. That is, beyond this point, there's dragons, because they imagined that the world was flat and the waters would just fall off, and that's the end of the world. The physical place where if you went any farther, there wouldn't be any more world. But in this story, the end of the world, well, we're dealing with alien space gods, we're dealing with Cthulhu, we're dealing with a guy who's probably gonna kill this alien space god. What's gonna happen? You know, might this map take him to the literal end of the world? Not him falling off, but the world being destroyed. Um, yeah, maybe. Okay. So let's see. How does the map work? Um, the spirals of the map shifted in the twilight, and the space around Crace shifted similarly, and Crace was moved, folded into 2 dimensions, and then 1, then expanded into many, like he was being ripped through a set of funhouse mirrors. Now he remembered. This is what it felt like to be torn out of a god, to be given a name and cast out with a terrible purpose, to be drawn back by that same purpose. Now he saw the god beast he had sprung from, a massive thing, its resting place buried by the ocean and the passage of time. Crace was stretched thin, so thin that he was able to enter the giant with ease. Now he was blind, heavy, large, asleep yet not asleep. He was joined again with the god, and yet still he was Crace. The mind of the great beast was an ocean, massive, dark, and full of alien beings, the stray thoughts of the beast, the swimmers in his mind, and they stared at Crace, the stranger in their midst, and they beckoned to him. These thoughts that had not found expression in untold millennia, these mad thoughts that devoured their brothers and sisters, and that wanted the taste of something new. Yeah. So I hope this is sufficiently alien. You know, the god's thoughts are living things. You kind of got that from Herman already, but here they are again. And these ones have gone crazy and eaten all the other ones. So that probably doesn't speak well of the god, right? Crace felt their lust and opened his eyes and drew himself together and drew the gun. All the mad thoughts stopped, paralyzed. Well, if this god's been obsessing about how he dies and the gun is part of it, then yeah, you know, even the crazy thoughts might recognize it. Yeah. Crace pointed the gun at where he thought the head was. "Show yourself," he screamed, but nothing came forward. Crace pointed the gun at each of the mad thoughts and demanded the same thing. "Show yourself," but nothing came forward. Crace pointed the gun at his own head and said, "Show yourself," and nothing did. "I'll just leave," Crace screamed, and he heard a low cry, the weight of the madness of eons, of a great mind devouring itself. Aware of its madness, helpless to stop it, the shame of a proud god reduced to a feeble state. A terrible pity took over Crace, and he fired the gun, not once, but 5 times, each time in a different direction. Now you will notice that I have a larger than normal space here. That means we're onto a new section. Yeah. So here's where I repurpose some of what I had written before. You know, and I changed some of the writing too, but some of it's the same, so whatever. When the stars were right and a god died, a great island, boy. Sorry, I don't like correcting too much, but that's better. The stars were right and a god died. A great island rose. Oh my God, Phil. A great island rose out of the Gulf of Mexico, and that island had a great volcano at the center, an ancient, massive structure that should have been worn smooth by water and time, but was jagged and beautiful, like a dagger at the throat of the sky. Where much of its interior mass had been, there was a caldera, a lake, and it was full of a black boiling liquid. And inside that black lake was a great beast, a god that had once roamed the universe, bringing death and madness wherever it went, now dead. Black ichor poured from its wounds, poured out of the caldera into the waters around it, and where the ichor hit the world, it was young again. The island had risen up with the volcano was ancient too, but now great beasts roamed the island. Their scales were striped in reds and yellows with a base of green, just like the floor of the island, and some were covered in similarly hued feathers, and their cries could be heard from the deltas of the American South and the white beaches of western Florida, and their steps shook the earth. There came a great yowl from the caldera, and even the beast stopped, rising out of the lake, covered in the blood of a god, screaming in pain as if newly born, was a naked man, large and powerful. He climbed and jumped to the top of the volcano and screamed again, and the whole world heard him. Whew. Okay. Yeah, and that's, ta-da, the end. There you go. You have now seen the end of the story. Yeah. So, now again, there's clearly more that has to be done. There's more description I have to add to it. Especially this last part is a little well, it needs some more description, but everything's there. Okay. Let's see. So it's Godkiller. All right. Yeah. So anyway, so everything is there, and yeah. Instead of the island already being there, the destruction of the god creates the island, and in a way, the destruction of the god does something good. It creates this new life. That is a reversal of what typically happens when an alien god is destroyed, or it bleeds its terrible black blood all over the place. You think it would corrupt the world or something. Yeah. But just because it creates new life, the new life it creates, or rather the old life it brings back to life, those ancient beasts are pretty damn scary. I've created Jurassic Park in the middle of the Gulf of in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. So yeah, that is a big deal. Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted is that I wanted the death of the god to mean something. And I think I might have mentioned this. I don't know if I mentioned this story before, but one of my favorite writers is Ray Bradbury, and one of his great stories is called The Homecoming, and that story is a story about vampires, a family of immortal bloodsuckers, and they love each other, and they love each other pretty much the same way that we love each other, and yet they are immortal vampires. It's true that a couple of uncles run a funeral parlor and get their blood that way, but the main character's snotty sister, Cece, she has telepathic powers. She sends her mind out. She takes over a woman and has her walk into a really dangerous situation. Then she jumps out of the woman's mind and into a bird's mind and watches a woman die. And nobody tells Cece that she's doing anything wrong because they are immortal bloodsuckers. And, maybe Cece's being a little mean to the humans, but, but so what? And yet the story has a lot of love. And so you have this loving story about these monsters, and I wanted the death, even the diminution of this great god, to have some pathos. I wanted, you know, I wanted, I well, I still want, you know, I want you as the audience to to feel that same pity that took over Crace, even though this great god would as soon devour you as look at you. McGlenn, I don't know what that means. Did I miss something? A girl got to get her kicked somehow. Uh, all right. So, anyways, that is that's something I wanted in the story. You know, and when I revise it, I might have to go back and put the god in it some more. Oh, Cece, of course. Thank you. I'm sorry, McGlenn. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You should read Homecoming. What a wonderful story. Yeah, and as famous as Bradbury is, I still think he doesn't get enough credit. But anyways, that Godkiller is done. I'm going to work on revising it, of course. But I have another story to show you guys. This is called The Ogre in the Shoebox. Okay, so a little background on this. I am, as Bobby will attest, a very nice guy. Journey would say the same thing, but I can't write anything nice. I've written maybe like one nice thing. Everything else that I write has some horror, bad stuff going on in it. You know, I sympathize with Gary Larson, who said that he could never do a straight comic strip like Dagwood. Gary Larson being the guy who did The Far Side. He said he could never do Dagwood. He said if he did Dagwood, that like Dagwood would go rabbit. Sorry, it was called Blondie, right? Whatever. But that Dagwood, her husband, would go rabid and bite his boss or do strange things like that. You know, so I say that because Journey and I, when we first started working together, and we brought in some artists and tried to work with them. And one of them was a really talented cartoonist, probably the best guy we worked with, and I forgot his name, and it's probably a good thing that I forgot his name, because he came up with this concept, the ogre in the shoebox. See, there's a kid, and he's got an ogre, and it's in his shoebox. See, and the ogre gets him in trouble. You know, it's sure maybe it's a little derivative of Calvin and Hobbes, but you know, what happens when Phil gets a hold of the ogre in the shoebox? You know, he didn't want to work with me after I wrote this. He didn't send me a breakup letter or anything. He just never got back to us, and you know, I'm very sad. So, the ogre in the shoebox. And again, this is written like a comic book script. Okay, so the scene is the Washington household. There's a QT House of the Washington sign. There's Timmy, his mom, his dad, and his little sister Beth, and they're all getting ready for the day. The whole scene is one of barely controlled chaos. Timmy's actually the busiest one. A little ogre is making mischief, and Timmy's right behind him, trying to fix the problems. Sometimes he succeeds, sometimes he fails. The ogre pours salt in his 8-year-old sister's cereal, so Timmy accidentally knocks it over. The ogre opens the latches on his dad's briefcase, so Timmy tries to close them again, but Dad's papers go flying, and he scolds Timmy. The ogre positions himself to trip Timmy's mom, so Timmy hugs her goodbye and kicks the ogre out the door. The ogre is quite resilient. See, it's cute so far, right? Nice and cute. School, including the bus ride, is the same. The ogre tries to throw someone's papers out the bus, and Timmy rescues them. But the ogre moves the teacher's chair, and Timmy's attempt to move it back in place makes it look as if he were the one to move his teacher's chair and have her fall on her ass. By the time Timmy gets home, he's exhausted. He goes to his room, and of course, the ogre goes with him. So scene 2. Timmy's room is the room of a 10-year-old boy in the 21st century, but it should have a retro feel. Yeah, like maybe a Pixar movie. Sure. Timmy is sitting at his desk, doing his homework. The ogre is jumping around on the desk, playing with Tommy's homework, messing with his pencil, and so on. The ogre, hey, Tim, why the long face? Please, can't you let up for just one day? For an hour? Tim, I'm just trying to have fun. It's not fun for me. Timmy grabs him and the ogre grunts. When I let you out of that shoebox, I felt sorry for you. You were stuck there. And you said you'd be my best friend, and all you do is get me into trouble. Timmy grabs his pencil and points it at the ogre. Hey, Timmy, pal, what are you doing with that thing? It's pointy. So pointy. The ogre attempts to move the pencil aside. Tim is resolute, however. My friends hate me. Timmy pokes the ogre. My teachers can't stand me. Timmy pokes the ogre. My parents wish I was never born. Timmy pokes the ogre. My little sister's scared of me. Timmy pokes the ogre. Oh, Tim. I was just trying to have a little fun. It was fun at first, wasn't it? I'm really sorry, Tim. I've gone too far. I'll be good, I promise, okay? One last chance. Okay, one last chance. Got it. How about I take off? Let things cool off a little bit, okay? Out of the house. Sure thing. Out of the house. All right. So we have Timmy torturing the ogre a little bit. But okay, you can play that for laughs. You know, poking. Maybe the ogre's okay. All right. The ogre leaves through Timmy's window. If Timmy could see his face, he'd be scared. The ogre is hurt and angry. Oh my, what will a tiny little ogre do? Outside of Timmy's window, he can see Tim's mom's garden, including the graveyard for all of Beth's short-lived pets, mostly rodents, hamsters, gerbils, mice, etc. Mr. Whiskers is dead, Mr. Longtail is dead, Mr. Funnylegs is dead, and so on. Why do I have to have the little animal pet cemetery in here? No, there's a reason for it, but still, you know. And the ogre thinks, damn, but that girl is a gerbil killer. Yeah, who does he think he is? Before me, he didn't have any fun. None. And if people hate him, they're jealous. Besides, it's not like he's getting into real trouble. I should show him real trouble. Yeah. The ogre prowls the neighborhood, looking into windows, climbing on top of cars, crawling under fences. Doesn't anyone in this neighborhood have a damn cat? Just to be clear, the ogre wants to kill a cat. I remember thinking that. Yes. Then he sees them through a window. Two big, bizarre goldfish with bug eyes. He sees Mrs. Miller lavishing them with attention. When she goes to feed them, they even stick their heads out of the aquarium. Not a fishbowl. The ogre goes to her window. The fish seems to look at him. Hey, what are you looking at? So Timmy's finishing up his homework. There's a knock at his door. It's his little sister Beth. She sees the shoebox but says nothing about it. Oh, hey Beth, what's up? Isn't it a little late? I don't understand my English assignment. Could you help me? Tammy proceeds to help her. He's really enjoying himself. The ogre watches Mrs. Miller go to sleep. She is a heavy sleeper. She snores. He climbs on her bed, leers at her chest. Yeah, this is a kid's story, right? And walks to her head. He whispers in her ear, "What's happened to my aquarium? Why, that's a Washington boy running away. Oh my God, my goldies. They're dead. They're dead." Clean up first, of course, and then talk to Mrs. Washington. Mrs. Washington, Mrs. Washington, I must talk to you about your son. Yeah. So he closes the door gently. Then he goes to the aquarium in the living room, and he addresses the fish. "A riddle. Fred and Mary are dead on the floor in a room that has not been disturbed. How did they die?" Have I told you that's my least favorite riddle? Yeah, we'll talk about that riddle later. But the ogre positions himself between the aquarium and the wall and pushes the aquarium onto the tile floor. He watches a little bit as they flop, gasping for air. Then he leaves, opening her front window but not closing it. He sneaks back into Timmy's room. Timmy is asleep, and the ogre goes to sleep in his shoebox. Yeah. Hey, it's the morning. Mrs. Miller. "Oh my God, my goldies, they're dead. They're dead. Mrs. Washington, I must talk to you about your son." And then we get Timmy's room. His mom closes the door from that, and then we hear her from the outside. And you're lucky she didn't press charges. So Timmy's getting dressed, fancy Sunday clothes. Next to his bed is a shoebox that is shaking slightly. "Hey, buddy, is the coast clear?" Timmy puts a dictionary in the shoebox. "I'm never letting you out." "Ah, Timmy, you can't be serious." "I'm grounded for a year. I have to see a counselor." "Yeah, that's kind of funny." Timmy puts another book, a hardcover of Bullfinch's mythology, on the shoebox. "Tim, come on, it's getting kind of tight." "All right, I'll be nice." "Yeah?" "Yeah, when I'm not grounded anymore, when I don't have to see a counselor, I'll let you out." "Timmy, my boy, you don't understand the trouble I can make for you. I've got a whole set of encyclopedias." Hey, it was 15 years ago. "I'll use them." Timmy's mom from the outside. "Timothy, let's go. We're out in that shoebox for all I care." Okay. So from inside the shoebox, there's a little bit of light, and the ogre looks scary. "You rotten little kid. I'll get out. Then no more games. You'll flop like those fish." Then there starts to be more light. The cover is lifted, and a huge hand picks him up. It's Beth. She is not gentle. She takes him to her room. She has a huge dollhouse. "You're mine now." "Who do you think you are?" "My brother doesn't know what to do, but I'll teach you to be nice." "Sweetie, what makes you think you can do that?" Beth takes him to the dollhouse. The dolls in it are eerily real fairies, as real as the ogre. "Girls, what do you do with bad boys?" "We punish them and teach them to be nice. And they can't get out until they're nice." "Well, here's one." "A boy! We'll call him Mr. Squiggles." "Oh, please, Beth. I'll do anything. Timmy will miss me." "I don't think so. None of the other boys miss theirs." Beth ignores his pleas for mercy and places him in the dollhouse. The girls fall on him, squealing with glee. And so to reiterate, the very nice Mormon boy who created the very cute ogre in the shoebox gets a story about a malevolent ogre who's murderous and who ends up being murdered by Barbie doll fairies. I don't know why he didn't like it, you know. And I think he wanted it to be an ongoing character. So, you know, there you go. That I still like that story. I think it holds up. I think it holds up pretty well. Okay. Yeah. So that was the end of Godkiller, an oldie but a goodie. You know, and that is about it for tonight, guys. One more thing, remember that tonight Journey is on Picarto. And because I see people spelling Picarto wrong all the time, it's spelled with a T, not a D. It's not like Jean-Luc Picard. It's Picarto. Anyways, so catch Journey on Picarto tonight, and you'll possibly get to see, you know, Boobs or Bush or whatever. Yeah. But in all seriousness, you'll get to see him cooperating with two other artists, and you'll get to see him fully expressing himself artistically without always having to worry about whether or not fucking Twitch will ban him. So that'll be nice. All right, guys. Good night.